And we are live, everybody. Welcome to the brand new pilot episode of the Yank and the Brit podcast.
I'm Kevin, and I'm the Yank.
And I'm Dan, and I'm the Brit. And we are just two Barstool bums who are going to talk nothing but football at you.
American football, too, at that.
Yeah, American football, not soccer. For anyone listening in the UK, we are an NFL, American football show. Best make that clear. I've been accumulated around here so much, you see, I don't even think about that. I've started just calling it soccer now. So great topics that we have coming up today, don't we, Kev?
We have a couple of really interesting topics. We're going to have a good discussion here, Danny.
Absolutely. And so the first one that we're going to talk about today is, it's been out there for a couple of weeks now. We got to address it, like some of the big stories that have been happening in the preseason. And this is probably the biggest football-related one that we have right now, and that is Patrick Mahomes' mega deal, mega extension of $503 million. 10-year extension, so it's a 12-year total deal in total. Accumulating at its maximum potential, 503 million. So, let's break this down and go into what does it mean for Kansas City and what does it mean for Patrick Mahomes, really?
Well, I look at it this way. I'm now a little bit worried about the amount of money. But I think that this was good getting him. He's secured. He seems to be the real deal. You don't need, I hope he's not going to be one of these guys that gets a big deal and flames out. That has happened. His mentality just does not seem to be that kind of guy. I think this is really going to make Kansas City dynamic for maybe as many as 6 or 7 years at least.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely, how many rings they win or not. Only time will tell because you don't know what's going to happen with the rest of the league. Chris Jones was saying the other day, he guarantees, or he says anyway, I think he will use the word guarantee, that Kansas City, with the signing of him and Mahomes, is going to bring home 5 or more rings. You obviously never really know that, but it's definitely going to put them in top contention in the AFC for quite some time.
Look, my Dolphins had Dan Marino, who finished his career with 61, that's 6-1 individual or team records, most of them individual records. He got into the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl was at 17 or 19, the Super Bowl 19. That was in January of 1985. We thought, oh yeah, so we lose to the 49ers. We'll be back. We're definitely going back to the Super Bowl. 16 more years, Dan Marino was our quarterback, and we never made it back to the Super Bowl. So anybody that puts a guarantee on it, they better shut their mouth, because I'm telling you, Dan Marino was, everybody acknowledged he was the best in the league at the time he was playing. But he didn't have a defense, and that's Kansas City better keep that defense. They better keep the defense, or they're not going to get back. They can have a wild offense, but lose a lot of games.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. And I know we don't really talk NBA or anything, but that was, and he was probably just caught up in the moment, but that was one of the funniest things about LeBron when they did a big press conference with Miami Heat as well, when they had the big 3. They were like, we're not going to win 3. Not 4, not 5, not 6, just 7 rings or whatnot. 10 championships.
That was the introductory. Yeah, that was the introductory celebration. When
they won 2 out, was it 2 out of 3 finals, something like that. But they won 2 rings together anyway, and that was it. So
he was here for what, 5 years? I don't know. I don't follow the NBA really, so I don't know.
But the big thing that I always get worried about these mega deals as well, particularly in the NFL, And these mega deals aren't actually, these 10-year deals aren't actually something new, and that's something we can dive into another episode of like all the players that have had these mega long deals in the NFL. But one of the things that always worries me with these long deals is injuries. I mean, what
Right.
what if like 2 years down the line, Mahomes starts picking up injuries like Cam Newton or Carson Wentz? Because I feel like Carson Wentz has spent the majority of his career out injured. To be fair, certainly the
Yeah,
majority of the
he's
last
re-injured.
4
When
years.
he's on, he's
So,
good, but he's injured so much.
but he's
You
not
really
on a
could.
lot of the time. And I know we talked about Madden ratings. Behind the scenes, and that's one that makes me laugh, is how he gets such a Madden rating in the 80s, because he's always injured. I'm like, the guy needs to play first to get a rating, surely,
Exactly.
does he not?
And
So I mean, looking at the breakdown, I will say I do feel like Mahomes's deal is a bit more sizzle than steak, as they say. Like, yes, if he sees it out full everything with all the incentive, yes, 503 million is like, wow.
those
But
incentives are going to be tough to make,
exactly,
and
but if you
it's
look
not
at the
guaranteed.
breakdown,
It's not
exactly, if
right. It's not guaranteed. So only around 350 million of it's guaranteed.
yeah,
So
yeah. And I think and and the big thing, and this is where I want to ask you the question of, do you think it's really a team friendly deal, or how do you think it's going to affect the team? um, because if you actually look at the deal, because I have it here in front of me. If you actually look at the deal from 2020 to 2031, the majority, I mean, he's got quite a good base salary, which I guess is the guaranteed money, but a lot of the money actually comes from the roster bonus.
correct.
So so
A
talking
lot of
about
it
the
is
injuries, if he happens to spend a whole season out injured, doesn't even step on the field for a game, or probably not even on the bench for a game, um, you know, the Chiefs have saved themselves about 35 million um, in that year, because I think at the lowest point, the roster bonus is just under 14 million. And at the highest point, it's 49.5 million.
well. This is also bringing me to my next point on this. We have heard the rumors. This is maybe a subject that can be explored later on when it becomes fully known what's going to happen. But there are rumors, because of the problems with profits and everything this year.
Hmm.
The owners are going to take the salary cap and make it and dump it from 198 million this year down to maybe as far down as 160 million next year. Having him and his salary is, and so much of it guaranteed, he's not going to be able to negotiate out of some of it, because they can always, well, let's negotiate and I'll take a pay cut, or I'll take a deferment. You can pay me after my career's over, and after I'm retired and this contract is over, you'll still owe me some money
Yeah,
for,
I mean,
and
I
they can
think of,
defer the money. But
I mean,
but
I'm just looking at everything over like the 10 or 12-year period, but I think I did hear that they almost constructed it like it was like 1 5-year deal and then 1 7-year deal, because obviously he still has his
right,
2-year
no, I got, yeah,
extension.
no, that's the
So
way
so
they
they
do.
kind of done it like that. So when it comes to the last 5 or 7 years, depending on where Kansas are as a team and where Patrick is as a player, they could actually just totally restructure the deal. So I mean, it's a great headline grabber, but that's also another reason why I think it's more headline than it is substance a
Right,
lot of the time.
exactly. Because
Because 5 years down the
oftentimes
time, they
in the
might pay him
past,
2 million.
right, oftentimes in the past, I've seen like the big mega deal that Peyton Manning signed. He only got about halfway through, and then he was gone.
Mm,
He was gone to Denver, and he renegotiated. Unlike baseball, you've got to pick up the old contract
yep,
of the player. In football, you got to negotiate a new deal with your new team.
yep.
So
And I
that
think that's what actually helped the Patriots, because they gave how the hell is his name just totally escaped me now. Drew Bledsoe.
Oh, right.
They did that with Drew Bledsoe. Like we gave him like a 10-year, I think it was $100 million deal, which at the time was really big.
Right.
2 years later, we traded him to Bills, and I don't think Bills had to pick up that tab at all,
No,
and
they didn't. No,
he just lost out on the remainder of that deal.
And that's the reason baseball players struck so hard for guaranteed contracts.
Yeah,
Back in 1994, and we'll have to talk about that sometime.
Because like we all know it's
Right.
like it says, it's common knowledge, it's going around that the NFL cap is going to drop over the next year or two. Now, partly because of COVID. Now, after that, it might start ramping up again. So, if you look at it like this, the Kansas City really only have, or potentially only have, 2 tough years to make it through salary cap wise, with with Mahomes' deal and Chris Jones's deal, which we need to get into at some point. So once they make it through that, do you think that then when the salary cap goes up, they'll be kind of on the home stretch again, and they'll be running free?
How many people are they going to be able to keep in between? If you've got Mahomes taking up 15% or so,
I think it's actually 18%.
18%.
Yeah, 18
of the
at
salary
least over
cap,
the 10 years, it's 18.7.
Remember, you've got to split all of the rest of your salary cap between 52 people.
Yep.
And when you got one person taking up almost 1/5 of your salary cap, that's going to create a lot of problems, because these guys are going to go, now, wait a minute, I play good for you. I want to get paid too. Well, sorry, can't keep you. And then is Mahomes going to say, okay, I'll take a salary cut and do that kind of a deal to help the team out? Some players will, some players won't.
Yeah, I mean, we all know Tom Brady is famous for doing that. I do generally think, though, with the way that the league is going and the way that quarterbacks are going, and I don't blame them for this. They're all trying to get as much as they can. Basically, they're trying to get. It's almost like every man's out for himself. Like I feel like Tom Brady is a bit of a rare breed in that when
there is, because there's extenuating circumstance. There's extenuating circumstances with Brady. Brady's wife was making about 5 times as much money as he was. She was making around, at the time, was making around $300 million.
But saying that, I mean, come on, with the amount that even some of these lower paid NFL players,
so it wasn't a big
they're not
deal
exactly strapped for cash.
A few million out. His children were going to be taken care of by his wife's money.
Hey,
so he was like, I'll take a few million off.
That come on, man. When you're talking this level, a few million, certainly in my eyes, a few million. I mean, even for like
to me, it's like
50, even for like 47 of the players on the team out of the 52, most of them ain't gonna notice $1 million or $2 million missing in their lifestyle changes.
It's true.
They're not.
Lifestyle watching. But with a lot of the athletes, remember, they're alphas. And they
want it. They want to be the top dog, and that's how they get it. That's their paycheck shows how good they are.
Taking that pay cut means maybe a cut in their ego too, a little bit. And some of them, I've got to weigh that out. And how much do they love playing football for the Patriots, or do they just love playing football and may play somewhere else because they can get paid?
Yeah, well, that's always the thing with the Patriots, and particularly Tom Brady. It was more of a case of, how much do you love winning? How much do you want a ring? And, I guess when you were in such a good spot as the Patriots to win rings, and you knew you was always going to be in the Super Bowl or close to it anyway, like you could probably take that pay cut. If you're, say, someone like the Ravens, who you stand a good chance, but just might not ever get there.
I'm still going to say, I'm still going to stick with, his wife was making so much more money than him that taking a few million off to do for the Patriots was not a hurt. It wasn't hurting him in the least. No. Anyway, we got another topic to go to.
Yeah. So I mean, and quickly though, as well, just with the Mahomes and the Chiefs is, I mean, I'm seeing here that Chris Jones has got 85 million on his contract, and that's actually only a 4-year contract as well. So again, like, how do you reckon that that is going to, like, with the two of them basically, and uh, with
Two of
between
them
those
together
two
are a
players,
quarter.
with those two players,
Right.
Kansas City have just thrown the bank at them. So how do you reckon it's going to affect the rest of the team? I mean, they're obviously willing to pay to bring people back because, if I remember correctly, they're bringing 50 of the 52 people that won the Super Bowl back this year. So they're basically planning on bringing everyone back, the whole team back. But, how do
There's
you
going to
think
be,
it's going to
they're
affect
going
the
to get,
team over
they're
the
going to
next
get
couple of
one,
years?
Danny, they're going to get, I think, one more year. When that salary class cap goes down after this season, as expected, that's going to cause a big problem because that right now, Jones and Mahomes together are about 25% of
Yep.
their salary cap. People are still working off of rookie contracts on Kansas City, but that ends after this year. There's, I think, 3 other players. I forget their names, but I remember that there's 3 players that are going to want to get paid next offseason.
Yep.
They're going to. How
So
does
the
that
question is,
affect
do,
the
do they
team?
ditch the rookies or do they trade Chris Jones? Because
I don't think that.
they're not trading Patrick, are they? They're not going to give him a 10 million deal,
Yeah, but all
10-year
3
deal
of
and
those
trade him.
guys are going. But all 3 of those guys are going to want a Jones deal.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
So
I can see
it's.
it coming down very quickly, to be honest.
I don't think Kansas City is going to be as long a dynasty as people. They may reinvent themselves, but Mahomes may have a couple of good years as a window. Then they're going to be maybe really good offense, but a
Yeah,
fairly, but not so good defense.
I,
So they
I,
may make the playoffs, but are they a real threat? I don't know. After this
yeah,
little short window, and then they're going to have to take time to build up again uh, before Mahomes gets too old.
yeah. No,
Because
absolutely. I can see them. I can see them having um, a very similar pattern to the Patriots under Tom Brady. So they're going to have a few years where they're winning. They're getting chips and they're in the finals and they're just losing. But they're getting chips. They're getting to the finals, and then they're going to have a period with Mahomes' contract where they're in a lull, where they don't make it to the final. They're probably like they're losing the
they may
AFC,
not
but like
even
you
make the
said, they're not.
playoffs a couple of times.
Yeah, but like, and no matter how far they get, whether it's the AFC Championship or they fall a round or two short, they're never really going to be a threat. And then they'll probably have a bit of a resurgence towards the end of his contract. But I really do think for Mahomes, though, it's like probably like with most players, it's that middle part of the contract where he's
Well,
actually really going to need to put the work in and get the results because it's that
Danny,
middle part of the contract where they're paying him the most amount of money.
well, Danny, one of the things that we have to remember is in the NFL, the playoff teams changed. Yes, there have been a couple of very constant teams.
Yeah.
Kansas City, remember, Kansas City is not one of them yet.
Oh, I know. Fucking nobody heard about
They
Kansas City till
change.
about two,
They
3 years
change so
ago.
much.
Nobody cared
They,
about them.
right. They change so much every few years, and that's the thing with giving these huge contracts. That's going to put your salary cap in such a compromise. It, that's why I like the approach that now my Dolphins are actually taking the approach because we've got all those expatriate coaches that the Patriots have done. Where when people start asking for money, bye
But
Felicia,
yeah, yeah.
bye bye.
And I think that's it kind of like in a business sense, that's the best way to do it.
Oh,
I mean,
you have to do
you
it.
know,
Yeah, it makes sense.
Patriots aren't known for drafting that well, but what we will do is we will basically wait for the free agency market to dry out instead of throwing god stupid amounts of money at these star players. We'll wait for the free agency market to kind of finish, settle, dry out, and then we'll just pick all the best bits out of there and just adapt them to our system,
Correct.
and yeah, quite often that's the better thing to do. So kind of moving on, but still within the realm of the Patrick Mahomes contract. What do you think this means for the NFL in total? I mean, we've talked about the salary cap and how it's going to go down and how the NFL salary cap might affect Kansas City.
Well,
But how
I,
do you think this
I
mega
think
deal
there's
that
going to
Mahomes
be,
has got
I think
is
there's
going
going
to
to be a lot of people holding out. They're going to want to get Patrick Mahomes money. I believe there's probably a lot of teams that are pretty upset at Kansas City ownership for giving him that
Oh,
kind of.
I would imagine there's a lot of NFL owners out there right now
Yeah,
who
they're saying, why
are
did you give him a
pissed. They're
10-year
they're
deal?
pissed. Let's put it like that.
Why did you give him a 10-year deal? Give him a 4-year deal. If he doesn't want it, this is what's going on with Dak Prescott right now
Yeah,
in
which is something
Dallas.
we're
I
going to
know
get
that's another
into
thing we
shortly.
wanted to talk about
Yeah,
was
yeah, we're going
Dak
to get into that shortly.
is, you know what, actually, I side with Jerry on this. Dak has not produced a playoff win yet. He's wanting like 30 to 40 million. And that was before Mahomes. That's the number we knew of before Mahomes. So how much more pressure is this put on the Cowboys and Jones to sign him? And how much more is he asking for now? How much more is Dak Prescott asking for? And I'm afraid that that's going to be a problem, that he signed this franchise this year, and they've got one more year they can sign him to a franchise. But I think that may be all he gets, because next year he's still going to want that money. And wait a minute, salary cap is going to drop. I think he's going to find out that it was a big mistake not signing for $30-some million for like 7 years or whatever it was proposed this year. He's going to say, in 3 years, he's going to say, oh man, what was I doing? Because I don't think he'll get nearly that much.
Well, I'll come back and address Dak specifically in a second, because I kind of think you're right, but I also think there's a few nuances and a few I guess planning ahead with Dak, future thinking, shall we say? But like, I mean, yeah, I mean, what do you in terms of like all the other quarterbacks? Like Lamar Jackson's got a contract coming up soon.
Oh yeah.
And then and then obviously I'm sure Russell Wilson and a few of the other guys will be looking at this, and again, they will all be having these questions come in, and so what do you think it means for quarterbacks of the future and the NFL? Do you reckon we're going to see more 10-year contracts coming out again? Do you reckon that
not think so?
Even if they're only like 4-year contracts, do you reckon a lot of quarterbacks are going to be getting offered contracts in the 40 million a year? How do you think that that's actually going to shape the future of NFL quarterbacks?
Danny, this contract really surprised me, because unless you're completely blind, you know what's going on with, I know this is it is related though. We've got a problem going on with our economy, and it's going to be and people are not going to afford tickets, or they're going to have to lower the prices. So the revenue the teams are going to get is going to drop. It is absolutely going to drop. You're going to have that, plus I think the TV deals.
Absolutely.
So all of that is going to combine, and you got players that are constantly used to nothing but their salaries going up and up and up exponentially.
Well, and
I don't think that's, and they're going to have to come to a stark reality. And this is where this comes in. Players, and how is this going to affect the future? Players are going to have to sit down and understand what the reality of the situation is. You're going to have, you cannot be sitting there turning down $30 million contract when there's millions of people out there that are homeless or, not doing very well, unemployed, and they're going to be so turned off to the NFL. They're just going to say, those effing millionaires turning down $30 million, and I can't even afford to live in my house. So that affects that is a big time. Yes, it's political, but it also is going to affect the NFL hugely. I mean, really
But
big.
but you do realize we are talking about the most prestigious position in all sports, and probably some of the most pampered and egotistical athletes going.
Oh, I know. It's going to
You
be
are absolutely
tough
right.
for
And
them.
speaking from like the lower man perspective, from the common man perspective, I agree with you. They should look and take a stock at what's going on.
But they don't. I
But
understand
but
that.
they won't, yeah, because at the end of the day, they
They
look at
live
it
in a
as
little bubble. They live in a little bubble, and they don't. They have people that say yes sir, yes sir, yes sir. They're rich enough that they can
well,
hire people
not
that
even
do
not even that, but
tasks.
they're just looking at it in their world. So they're basically saying, okay, so and you could look at any job, like if we had
Right.
a corporate
Well,
job or something like that, you'd look at it, we'd look at it exactly the same. We'd say, okay, well, so and so does this job for this team or for this company, and he's
well,
getting paid X
right,
amount a year. So
right.
therefore, like, I want to get paid at least X amount a year, and it doesn't
One
necessarily have
thing,
to be
Danny,
the full 46 that Mahomes is getting. But, if I'm sort of like your star company man, don't be giving me 50% of what the best competitor is
well,
getting.
this is the problem,
Um,
and
and,
this is
and
going
that's what
to
it's going to be like. They're all going to be bargaining. They're going to be saying, well, he got 46. Well, I want 46. Or I want at least
well,
I want at least 40 or 38
Danny,
or 37, depending on who you are and where you're at.
Danny, can you say future labor problems in the NFL? I think
Can,
so.
can I see it?
Yeah, no, well, I just said, can you say
Oh,
future labor problems? I think we can both agree to that. This is going to cause Mahomes' deal.
yeah.
This was not talked about in the media as much as it should have been, I believe, is how this deal is going to affect the NFL for the future. And I think it is much bigger deal, and it's going to
Yeah.
affect it much more than a lot of people realize right now. In another couple of months, I think they're going to go, you know what, maybe that. And I think Kansas City, this is what I can't understand. I don't know what the finances are of the NFL owners. Nobody knows completely. And this is what the NFL players are going to say. Look, we're partners in this deal. We need to see your books. We need to know what's really going on with the money. And then the players, I think, but that's something the owners are not going to want to do. And boom, that's what's going to happen. I know with baseball. Baseball is going to tell the players, well, we got to cut back and all this. Can you give us the books so we can see exactly how much money you teams are making, so that we can because there's a lot of distrust between the
Oh,
players
yeah.
and the
There
owner,
always is.
and not
There
only
always is.
baseball but in football too. So in football, I think it's going to come down to that the players are going to say, okay, Mr. Owner, open up your books. I want to see where the money is going, what money you've got
I mean,
coming in, where the
the
money's
thing is
going,
that
why you can't pay me and the rest of the players.
the thing is though, it's all right saying that, but the salary cap is decided by the NFL. I mean, and I know the NFL is like an owners committee. It's not sort of like there's just one man in charge.
Right.
Um, but at the end of the day, the salary cap is kind of decided by the NFL. So it's all right them
It
wanting
is
to see the
definitely.
books, and they can say, hey, the Dolphins make X amount of millions a year, and Kansas City makes X amounts of millions a year, and oh, Bengals, they only make a couple million a year. But at the end of the day, you know, it's not the teams that decide
Well,
their salary caps. Because if it
Danny,
was, trust me, if it was, Jerry
right,
Jones wouldn't have a salary cap. The way Jerry Jones likes to spend money, if it was
right.
up to him, there'd be no such thing as a salary cap, and he would just be
Well, Danny,
raining dollars all over that team.
Danny, they have the salary cap there because that is built in. Even at $198 million this year, they're guaranteed to be making a profit.
Oh,
That's
oh,
why.
absolutely,
That's
absolutely.
why
Every business.
NFL.
That's why these
When
guys are
an NFL team,
billionaires.
that's why if an NFL team goes up for sale, it is bought like that.
Yeah,
It doesn't
well,
take any time
obviously.
for it to get bought. There will be
Hey,
a negotiations the very day that they announce they're selling. They're going to have 20 people on the phone, serious buyers saying, I want to buy that team.
hey, every major sports team is the same. it's all big business when you look at all of the
Right.
TV
They're not
revenue, the
going to.
jersey
They can't
sales, all of
operate
that
it.
stuff.
They can't operate at a loss.
But then
There's
also
no way
it's
they can
gonna,
operate at a loss.
but that obviously makes sense as well because these guys are billionaires. If there was no money in football, then billionaires wouldn't be buying it. Billionaires are the
Correct.
smartest and the best business people in the world.
Yeah.
So you were saying earlier that you're worried about like how much Dak might be demanding now that Patrick Mahomes has got the deal.
Correct.
But I actually think that I actually think that Dak Prescott was demanding that much money simply because he knew what Patrick Mahomes was getting. So I basically think that he was foreseeing the future, for better words.
Well,
He was basically saying, and that's why he didn't sign towards the end of last season. And I think it's because he was basically just trying to bide his time. He was like, I want this much
I
money. I
agree
want
with
this
you
much
on
money.
that.
They're like, no, we're not going to give you that. And he's like, watch me. He said he went out there. He had a few awesome games. Okay, yeah, I still want my money. You're going to bet on me again? Okay. He went out there, betted on himself, and he came up trumps. And he knew that, yeah, he knew that Patrick Mahomes was going to get this big deal or a deal of this kind of caliber size. So he was basically just buying time so he could then size up what he's
I
already
agree with you
demanding
there.
against that.
But I think because of the situation and the economic situation that's going to happen, I think he wanted to see what Mahomes would get, but he's also, I think, going to have screwed himself because I don't think he's going to get anywhere near that kind of money with a reduced salary cap, and I don't think it's just going to be for one season. They're talking this could last for a while, so um, this could be. I mean, he calculated, he took a gamble, but I think he's going to kind of end up having to eventually take a lot less money than he thought he was going to get.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I no, and again, I agree with you.
It
I
was a
think this is where
gamble. No,
I think this is where the foolish part of
scenario.
Dak Prescott comes in, because Jerry Jones as well is looking into the future, probably even a little bit further ahead than what Dak is.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
again, Dak was looking ahead to the Mahomes deal, into the future to the Mahomes deal, and hoping that he could use that as leverage to get his deal signed this
We're
season.
all, one thing that's going to really hinge on what happens to the salary cap is actually if the TV people see a reduction in their commercial um, uh, profits from the commercials that they sell,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of companies can't pay that anymore, not willing to pay that anymore. They're going to ask for a reduction in the price of the commercials. So then the revenue from the commercials is going to drop. That means the amount of money that the NFL, the TV contract between the network and the NFL may have to be renegotiated. That means every team, because remember, they're the biggest socialist outfit there is. They all
Yeah.
split the TV money, the radio money, the internet money, all that's split exactly to the penny, even between 32 teams.
Um,
So,
like that's gonna come into
that's
it a
going to
little bit.
drop. What's that?
That's gonna come into it a little bit.
Oh, I think
Um,
so.
but I don't think it will probably be as drastic as that. And I think I mentioned this to you before, and that's because you know, yeah, Coca-Cola might not want to give them like 2 million. They'll be like, nah, it's not worth it. We can't afford that. But there will probably be some company, some upcoming company, um, that really wants and values that TV time. Um, and I'm
I
not
don't think
say
there'll
it's
be
going to
enough of
happen with. It's not going to happen with everyone. There will be some reduction in some revenue,
them. I just don't
with the
think there'll be
advertising
enough.
negotiation. But there will be some companies who will be like, fuck it, I'll give you 10 million, I'll give you 2 million for this advert.
We'll see.
Coca-Cola might not want to do it, but for this company that's never been on TV, that's never
Right.
had this kind of exposure,
Well,
it'll be worth the gamble for them, and they'll do it. Quite often there is always a buyer for your price somewhere. It's
right,
just finding it, that's all.
right. I will say this, that yes, remember though, we had at the end of the last decade, or well, not this last, because we're at the end of this decade. At the end of 1999, 1998, 1999, around 2000, there was the dot-com bubble that burst. And all the dot-coms were buying up a lot of time on the NFL, baseball, wherever. But all of a sudden, when the dot-com bubble crashed, prices came down extensively. And then 9/11 happened. And when 9/11 happened, that again brought revenues down.
Then, yeah.
Because there was a big recession right after that.
So I mean,
that's going to play into it. This is going to be a pretty bad. This is not going to be a recession. This is going to be a depression.
At the end of the day, Jerry Jones can see that there's going to be.
But his revenue is going to go down too, because
I know, but he can see
down. Unless he brings the prices, reduces the prices on it, and of course that's going to be a loss of revenue. But people are going to be more interested in a roof and food on their tables than buying a Dallas Cowboys jersey. That people are going to become more prioritized.
I know. So if you let me finish, what I was going to say is I know that Jerry Jones is actually looking ahead to, again, the salary cap. I don't care where it comes, how it comes, whether it's through loss of jersey sales, TV advertising, there's going to be a salary cap reduction. Just plain and simple, the company, the business is going to make less money. Yeah. Right. And Jerry Jones is looking ahead of that, especially after paying out big contracts to Amari and to Zeke. He's looking ahead to that, and he's basically trying not to cripple himself. We know he loves spending money, but he is looking at trying not to cripple himself for those 2 or 3 years when there is a low salary cap, which is why he's prepared to give Dak his $30 million this year,
right?
On the franchise tag, but he's not prepared to give him that long-term big money. I know
it's going to be very interesting to see how much. Remember, it's franchise tag with a reduced salary cap. Franchise tag is not going to be as much as it was this year.
I think the franchise tag is set depending on what you got paid last year. I think it's all depending on your wages. So Joe Tunney was going to sign a franchise tag, and his franchise tag was only going to be worth $14.5 million. So it's all dependent on what you've been getting paid, and obviously if you sign a franchise tag this year, if you sign it for a second year, it has to be X% more than what you got paid on the previous one.
We'll
so
see
if he signs the second one, he will get paid more. But the question is, do you think he will sign a second one? Honestly, I can see him just being out. You know, it's Dak and out.
He doesn't. Then I'm going to tell you, he is, unless he wins the Super Bowl this year, and even that is not a guarantee. But he has had 4 years in the NFL. Jerry Jones is willing to pay him a good salary, but he is not going to go to that top elite salary and pay him top 3. Mm-hmm. He's just not willing to do that because Dak has not proven that he's worth it. He's been injured. He's he hasn't won a playoff game. He's played in 2 and lost them both. And they were both home, I think.
But if you actually look at some of his numbers aren't that bad. We'd probably have to have another chat about that when I have him in front of me. But his numbers aren't actually that bad. And, you know, the problem always lies on the quarterback and the coach. But ultimately, everyone needs to remember that this is a team sport. So, you know, Dak can have wicked numbers. Zeke can be running for thousands and thousands of yards every game, which is one of the reasons why, you know, Dak's numbers have dropped a little bit. But at the end of the day, if they don't have the defense to hold them up, what's it matter? Like, they're still going to lose. But no one ever blames the defense for losing games. They always blame the quarterback.
Always blame the quarterback. I agree.
Next year, quick one to wrap this up. Then next year, what do you reckon is going to happen with Dak? Do you reckon he's going to sign a contract? Do you reckon he's going to be franchise tagged? Or do you reckon he's going to dip out and find a new team?
I think the circumstances are going to force him to sign another franchise tag because he's not going to be happy when Jerry Jones says, wait a minute, that offer I made to you for $30 million a year, that's off the table now because of the economic situation.
I actually reckon next year he's going to be with another team wearing another jersey.
Well, it could come down to that if he doesn't accept the franchise tag.
Yep.
He's going to be out there looking.
Well, I just don't think he'll be interested in the franchise tag. I think he will go, and with having Andy Dalton on the team, you never know. Jerry Jones might have signed him this year to the franchise tag and might actually plan on moving him before the season is over.
Well, if you're going to count on Andy Dalton to be your quarterback, I want to sell you a bridge in Arizona, or the bridge in Brooklyn, or the London Bridge.
Hey, I'm not saying it's the best choice, but I think that they made that move to show that, like, hey, you ain't our be all and end all. If you're going to hold us ransom, we will have a contingency plan in place for you.
Well, Danny, I think that's a good enough place to stop here for this week.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much for us to catch up on and to talk about. There's definitely going to be a lot of more stuff coming. Big stories that have happened and big stories that are to happen. Updates as we are in the preseason mode.
Right, we're going to have to see what we're going to, during the season, we're going to talk about the games. This is, of course, before the season. And we're going to go through the schedule. We're hopefully going to do 2 podcasts a week. And we're going to have one that's going to be mostly dedicated to the upcoming games. And our one that'll be earlier in the week will be a recap of the games from the previous week. And so we'll be having discussions about the games, which is what we really want to do. This is Kevin the Yank, and
I'm Dan the Brit.
And we're going to say goodbye to y'all. Thank you to everybody for listening. Look on as many platforms as you can for our podcast. I believe we'll be on at least 4 or 5, platforms. Anchor and I think Google Podcasts for sure.
Our social media, if you want to follow us on any social media, is just at Yank and Brit NFL. So whether it's Instagram, YouTube, where you'll be able to see the videos of these podcasts,
or
whether it's
YouTube.
Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Yank and the Brit NFL. You'll find us there posting regular content throughout the week and questions to keep you guys engaged and, get some, keep you informed on what's coming up.
All right, Danny, that's going to be it for me.
All right, and that's it from me. So we're out, everybody. See you on the next one.